How many times have you thought, this is it? This time she's into me. Only to never hear from her again. How many times have you been the perfect gentleman, gave her attention, made her laugh, even picked the perfect date spot, and then watched her walk right into the arms of a guy who didn't even try? How many times have you told yourself, maybe next time I'll get it right, while deep down knowing you're stuck in the same cycle? Listen, if those questions hit a nerve, it's because you've been running the same broken pattern as almost every man out there. You've been told that being nice, respectful, and available is the formula for attraction. But here's the brutal twist. That's not the formula. That's the trap. Not what gets you noticed, but what makes you invisible. And the worst part? You probably don't even realize you're sabotaging yourself, because from the outside, you're doing everything right. Inside the game, though, you're playing with the wrong rules. That's why in this video, I'm going to rip open the code behind attraction. Why the very habits you thought would win women over are the same habits that push them away. And if you stay with me until the end, I'll give you the exact shift that takes you from being overlooked to being unforgettable. Here's where most men get it completely backwards. They think women are ignoring them because they're missing something. Not tall enough, not rich enough, not funny enough. That's the excuse we all lean on. But the truth is sharper. It's not what you're missing. It's what you've been taught to add. Not lack of qualities, but the wrong program running in your head. From childhood, you were conditioned. Your mom told you, be nice to girls. Teachers said, always respect women. Movies showed the guy who waits, who sacrifices, who bends over backward, and in the end, the girl magically falls into his arms. Sounds romantic, feels safe, but in reality, that training builds compliance, not desire. It makes you predictable, not magnetic. Think about it. When was the last time she obsessed over the guy who texted back in 5 seconds flat? When was the last time she lost sleep over a man who agreed with everything she said? Never. Comfort without tension equals boredom, and boredom is the death of attraction. This is why your pattern keeps repeating. You invest more, you compliment more, you wait around more. You think you're stacking value, but you're not. You're draining polarity. Attraction is not addition, it's subtraction. Not about giving more, but about creating space, uncertainty, and tension. And here's the paradox. The harder you chase approval, the less she feels it. The more you signal, pick me, I'm perfect, the faster she picks someone else. And that someone else? He doesn't need to be better than you on paper. He just doesn't orbit around her. He carries his own gravity. That's why the so-called bad boy often wins. It's not because women love being treated poorly. It's because he doesn't abandon his reality the moment she appears. He has his own center of gravity. He's not auditioning. He's not performing. He's living. And she feels pulled into that. Here's your first shift. Stop asking, how do I get her to choose me? Start asking, is she even worth choosing? That flips the frame instantly, because the man who selects is always more powerful than the man who begs to be selected. Let me give you a picture you'll never forget. I was at a house party years ago, standing in the corner with my best self on display. Clean shirt, polite manners, everything society told me women wanted. And then I noticed my friend. He wasn't good looking. He wasn't stylish. Honestly, he looked like he'd borrowed his outfit from a lost and found box. But 3 women were fighting for his attention, while I was basically invisible. That moment burned a hole in my brain, because it didn't make sense. On paper, I should have been the obvious choice. Yet there he was, the unqualified guy, winning without effort. And here's the twist. He wasn't more impressive than me. He was simply more alive. Not polished, but unpredictable. Not agreeable, but magnetic. This is what I call polarity. Every interaction has pressure points, moments where you either increase tension or kill it. Most men are terrified of tension. A woman disagrees, they smooth it over. She tests them, they fold. She seems uncomfortable. They crack a joke to make it safe. And in doing so, they remove the very spark that creates attraction. Think of your favorite movie. Does it grab you because everything is smooth, easy, predictable? No. It grabs you because there's conflict, push and pull, risk and uncertainty. That's exactly how attraction works. Not comfort, but polarity. Not zero tension, but controlled tension. Here's the brutal truth. When you act like an instruction manual, page 1, I like you. Page 2, I'll do anything for you. Page 3, please pick me. You become boring, predictable, replaceable. And women are wired to tune out anything predictable. So the next time you interact with a woman, catch yourself. Are you killing tension or creating it? Because every moment you choose comfort over polarity, you quietly erase yourself from her mind. Now let's talk economics. Attraction follows the same law as the marketplace, supply and demand. If your attention is unlimited, if your time is always available, if your responses are instant, you've made your supply infinite. And anything infinite has zero value. That's why she ignores the good morning texts. That's why she doesn't care when you're always on standby. You've trained her to expect you, and therefore to dismiss you. But flip it around. When your attention is selective, when your time is scarce, when your responses aren't guaranteed, that scarcity creates value. Suddenly she's checking her phone. Suddenly she's wondering, what's he doing? Who's he with? That uncertainty gives you space in her mind. And space in her mind is where attraction grows. Here's the twist. Not about giving more, but about holding back. Not about proving yourself, but about controlling your frame. Because the real battle isn't about looks or money, it's about frame control. Most men enter a woman's world and adapt to her rules. They think, what do I need to say or do to keep her interested? That's chasing. That's begging. That's giving her the role of judge while you stand in the audition line. Flip it. The men who win aren't auditioning, they're selecting. They walk into interactions with the mindset. Is she interesting enough to be part of my reality? That subtle shift changes everything. It turns rejection into simple filtering. It transforms anxiety into curiosity. It pulls the frame of power back into your hands. Think about it. The man who's chasing approval always loses, even if she says yes, because his entire identity depends on her reaction. But the man who selects, he's untouchable. If she's in, great. If she's out, even better. He just saved his time. That's the gravity women feel. That's why some men never have to try, yet they never lack attention. They're not playing for approval. They're playing for alignment. And that difference is what separates the forgettable from the unforgettable. All right, let's make this practical. It's one thing to understand the theory. It's another to feel it in real time. So here are a few tools that flip your interactions instantly. Tool number 1, the texting filter. Before you hit send, ask yourself one question. Am I writing this to get a reaction from her, or because it genuinely amuses me? If it's the first, delete it. If it's the second, send it. Why? Because women can smell neediness through the screen, like sharks smell blood in the water. The moment you start performing for approval, you lose gravity. But when you write from your own amusement, you project non-neediness. And that's rare. Rare is valuable. Tool number 2, practice disagreement. I don't mean being difficult for no reason. I mean when you honestly disagree, voice it. Nah, I didn't like that movie. Or, I see it differently. Or my personal favorite. That's the dumbest thing I've heard all day. Said with a smile, said with playfulness. It flips the script, because most men are terrified of friction. But friction is fuel. It shows you have a spine. It shows you're not another worshiper at her altar. Tool number 3, self-amusement. Instead of thinking, how do I impress her? Flip it to, how do I entertain myself in this conversation? This mindset kills neediness at the root. Because now, you're not performing, you're enjoying. And enjoyment is contagious. Here's the twist. Not about tricks, but about calibration. Not about faking confidence, but becoming the kind of man who actually doesn't need her reaction to feel good. That authenticity, she feels it instantly. So, practice these tools. Test them. Fail with them. Adjust them. Even your failures will create more spark than your old, perfect gentleman routine. Because women don't remember the guy who agreed with everything. They remember the man who made them feel something. Let me tell you about the moment everything clicked for me. I was on a date with a woman who could stop traffic, the kind of girl other men turn their heads for. Halfway through dinner, I realized something. I was bored. She was gorgeous, yes. But her conversation? Flat. Predictable. The old me would have pushed through. Smiled. Nodded. Pretended I was fascinated just because she was attractive. But this time, I didn't. I looked her in the eye and said, "Listen, you're stunning. But this conversation is putting me to sleep. I'd rather go home and watch Netflix. It'd be more stimulating." And I left. Guess what happened? She called me later that night, then the next day, then the day after. This wasn't because I was rude. It wasn't a game. It was because, for the first time, she met a man who valued his own time more than her looks. That's magnetic. Here's the twist. Not about being mean, but about having standards. Not dismissing women, but refusing to worship them. When you put a woman on a pedestal, you force her to look down on you. That's physics. Respect can't flow upward from a pedestal. The truth is, most men have only one filter. Is she hot? That's it. That's their entire standard. And that's why they lose. Because a car can look shiny on the outside and still have a dead engine. Attraction without compatibility is a trap. Real power comes when women stop being your need and start being your bonus. Your life is the main course. Your work, your goals, your passions, your friendships. Women are dessert. Sweet, enjoyable, but not essential. That's when everything shifts. Because when she feels that you're full without her, she wants in. Not to complete you, but to join you. And that's the difference between chasing validation and creating genuine attraction. Now let's tackle the elephant in the room, the friend zone. Every man fears it, but most men don't really understand why it happens. They blame timing, bad luck, or her being not ready. But the truth is harsh. You don't stumble into the friend zone, you earn your way in. You earn it by acting like a buddy when you wanted to be a lover. You earn it by hiding your intent behind fake neutrality. You earn it by giving endless attention, endless support, and endless availability while pretending it's all innocent. Deep down, you knew it wasn't. And women sense that incongruence instantly. That's why you became her safety net. The guy she texts when the man she actually desires doesn't answer. The emotional support pet she relies on without ever seeing as a romantic option. And then one day, after months of patience, you make your big confession. She looks at you with pity and says, "Sorry, I don't see you that way." Of course she doesn't. You trained her not to. You positioned yourself beneath her instead of beside her. Here's the twist. It's not about being less nice, but about being more clear. It's not about being colder, but about being honest from day one. If you feel attraction, let it show through your energy, your presence, your playful tension. Don't bury it under fake friendship. To make the difference clear, imagine two men. The first showers her with compliments, agrees with every opinion, rearranges his life to be available at all times, and works overtime to please her. Subconsciously, she decides he is safe, predictable, and forgettable. The second man is friendly but not overeager, playful enough to tease and disagree, and focused more on his own amusement than on impressing her. Her subconscious conclusion is completely different. She sees him as interesting, unpredictable, and worthy of respect. That's the contrast. It's not about being a jerk. It's about having a spine, having standards, and holding a frame that doesn't collapse in front of beauty. Once you begin operating from that reality, something shifts. Women respond differently, yes, but more importantly, you feel different. You stop chasing validation like a contestant in an audition. You start carrying yourself like the prize. Understanding these ideas is one thing, but feeling them in real life is another. So let's make this practical. Imagine you're about to text a woman you're interested in. Before you hit send, pause and ask yourself one simple question. Am I writing this to get a reaction from her, or because it genuinely amuses me? If the answer is the first, delete it. If it's the second, send it. That small filter changes everything, because women can sense neediness the way a shark senses blood in the water. The second you perform for approval, you lose your gravity. But when you write from your own amusement, your words carry an energy that says you don't need her validation. That energy is rare, and rare is attractive. Another exercise is practicing disagreement. I don't mean arguing for the sake of being difficult. I mean expressing your real opinion when you genuinely see things differently. If she says she loved a movie you thought was trash, say so. If she makes a statement you think is ridiculous, push back with a smile. This isn't about conflict for conflict's sake. It's about showing you have a spine. Most men nod along and try to keep the peace, but peace without polarity creates boredom. Women don't respect men who bend to every word. They respect men who see them as equals, capable of being wrong. The third practice is self-amusement. Instead of asking yourself, what should I say to impress her? Flip the script and ask, what would make me laugh? What would entertain me right now? When you shift from performing to enjoying, everything changes. Your energy loosens. You become playful instead of cautious. And that feeling spreads because enjoyment is contagious. Here's the twist. These aren't tricks you can fake. They only work when you commit to them for real. Not about pretending not to care, but actually learning to care less about outcomes. Not about acting confident, but building a life that makes you confident. When you practice this long enough, you stop chasing approval and start radiating authenticity. And authenticity is the one thing women can't resist. Let me give you a story that captures this shift better than any theory ever could. A few years back, I went on a date with a woman who could have been on the cover of a magazine. From the moment we sat down, I felt the usual pressure rising inside me. The old script whispered, "Don't screw this up. Impress her. Keep her interested." But halfway through the night, something unexpected happened. I realized I wasn't impressed. She was stunning, yes, but her conversation was shallow and predictable. The old version of me would have faked interest. I would have forced myself to laugh at weak jokes, nod along with boring stories, and drag the night out just because she was beautiful. But instead, I leaned into the new frame. I looked her in the eye and said, You're gorgeous. But honestly, this conversation is putting me to sleep. I'd rather go home and watch Netflix. It would be more fun. Then I stood up, paid my part of the bill, and left. Here's what shocked me. That night she called. The next day she texted. For a week straight, she chased my attention. Why? Because for the first time in a long time, she met a man who valued his time more than her looks. I didn't punish her. I didn't insult her. I simply refused to trade my standards for beauty. That kind of self-respect is rare. And rare always creates attraction. This is the twist most men never grasp. It's not about being cold or arrogant. It's about being willing to walk away when your standards aren't met. Not clinging, but letting go. Not chasing validation, but protecting your own frame. When you live this way, something powerful happens. You stop needing women to fill the void in your life. You stop begging for approval. You stop treating beauty like currency. Instead, women become an addition to a life you already love. They stop being your air supply and start being the bonus. And once you taste that freedom, you'll never want to go back. Here's the truth. Most men will nod along to everything I've just said, maybe even take notes. But tomorrow, they'll go back to chasing, pleasing, and over-investing. That's why nothing changes. They keep adding more compliments, more attention, more availability, until they erase every ounce of value they had. The men women actually remember don't play that game. They don't add, they subtract. They subtract neediness, predictability, and obsession with outcomes. They create space, and that space pulls her in. Not more effort, but less desperation. Not begging to be chosen, but choosing for themselves. That's the fork in the road in front of you. Stay the same and keep pressing the blue button, living in the comfort of invisibility. Or choose differently. Build standards, protect your frame, and live as if your time and attention are scarce and valuable. Because they are. So here's my challenge. For the next 30 days, practice caring less about results. Approach without expectation. Text without seeking approval. Date with standards instead of desperation. At first you'll slip, maybe fail. But even those failures will create more spark than your old perfect gentleman routine ever did. 98% of men will hear this and change nothing. 2% will actually do the work. The only question is, which side are you on? If you're ready to stop playing the audition game and start living as the prize, don't just watch and move on. Re-watch this, take the challenge, and start today. Because the sooner you let go of needing her, the sooner she'll want to need you. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.